disappear. Now, I want to talk about the bracha of Shechianu. One of the reasons why I want to speak about the bracha of Shechianu is because as we approach Pesach, we will have many opportunities to be saying the bracha of Shechianu. So I want to talk about when we say Shechianu and when we don't say Shechianu. Shechianu is a very, very complicated, I wouldn't say it can be a complicated blessing. There are times that it's very clear that we do say it, and there are many times that we're clear that we don't say it, but there's lots of grey areas. For example, when you have new fruit, which fruit do we say on? Which fruit do we not say on? At what stage do you say on the new fruit? Do you say on the new fruit when you buy the fruit? Do you say it on the fruit when you eat the fruit? If you buy new clothing, on what clothing do you say Shechianu? If I buy a new sweater, do I make Shechianu? If I buy from a second hand, do I make a clothes store? Do I make Shechianu? So there's lots of complicated questions associated with Shechianu, and we're gonna go through them. But I want to start with an introduction about the bracha of the symbolism of the bracha of Shechianu. After we've spoken about the symbolism of the bracha of Shechianu, we're going to look at three categories of Shechianu. One, the first category where we always say Shechianu. The second time when we sometimes say Shechianu. And third category when we don't say Shechianu. So we're going to look at those three categories, okay? But before we get to the categories, I want to share with you a really beautiful introduction to the idea of saying Shechianu. And it's from this book over here, Pinei Halacha. Pinei Halacha from the Laws of Brachot. It's actually probably in English too, but I have it here in Hebrew. I'm going to read and translate. And he says like this. Yesh ladat, we should know, ki ein tzorech b'simcha miyuchedet hachoreget me'hamekubal kedei levarech Shechianu. Shechianu, you don't need to have some great event in order to justify making the blessing of Shechianu. Ela, gam al simcha ktana. Shemitchadeshet la'adam ba'et kniyat beged ragil. Even if I just bought a new suit, it's cute. It's not like a world-shattering event. But sometimes small simcha justifies recognition. Ba'et achila, do I eat a new fruit that I haven't had for a while? Tzarich lodot l'Hashem, we have to thank Hashem and to make a blessing. Yesh b'tfisa zu, this concept, meaning this bracha of Shechianu is hadracha yisodit. It teaches us a fundamental idea. Anashim rabim, many people, mitzapim le'eza irua gadol shiromem bevat achat et chayim. Sometimes I'm down. You're down. We're all down sometimes. And then when I'm down, I'm waiting for something huge to lift me up. I need something big to lift me up. In the meantime, chayehem afurim ukdurim. And then, in the meantime, life isn't so good. Aval, adam shemitrakel lasim lev lismachot haktanot shebechayav lodot laHashem aleihen lomed lahakir et erkam shel hachayim hamurkavim mipratim ktanim shatochen haganuz bahem gadol. Va'al yedei kach yizke lechayim meleim va'ashrim betochen umashmaut. He says sometimes when I make a bracha Shechianu, I haven't had grapes this year. I haven't had an apricot or cherries. It's cute, but it's not like, like I'm down, oh look, here's some cherries. But making Shechianu is a recognition that even small things are worthy of noticing. If I'm only going to be lifted by big events, then the result is my life is going to be dull, because the big events, like a marriage or a birth, they happen, Baruch Hashem, but it's not like they happen every day or every week or maybe not even every year. But when I recognize little small things, that appreciation, that gratitude for small things is really what the bracha of Shechianu is teaching us. Shechianu v'kiyemanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh. That God has given us the light, and God has given us life and sustained us in order to bring us to this time that I'm going to eat an apricot. Is that really what I want to say? I would say, sustained us and given us life that I can be here now standing under the chuppah. That makes sense. But no, I'm saying that on an apricot or on a new shirt. Why? Because I'm appreciating God's, the little smachot, the gratitude to God, not just for the huge events that happen, but sometimes those little, little jolly things that happen that, that we come across throughout our lives. Those are also worthy of acknowledgement. Okay. That's a lovely introduction. It's a lovely way to view this unique, special, beautiful blessing. Okay, joy. Now, there are three categories that we're going to look at. The first category is performance of a seasonal mitzvah. So we make a bracha on Rosh Hashanah. We make a bracha on Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, Pesach, Shavuot. And also seasonal mitzvot, like we did at the beginning of this week on the Megillah. When we eat matzah on Leil HaSeder, so we say Shechianu for Pesach, and another Shechianu for the seasonal mitzvah of eating a matzah. Shaking lulav, lighting Hanukkah candles, all of those things. So we always all make a bracha on a seasonal mitzvah. A seasonal mitzvah, as you see in point number 4, is something that happens less than once a month. Does that make sense? Meaning that the gap between one is normally once a year, like an annual event.
So, like if it's 30
Yisrael,
days.
you are such a gift to the Jewish people. Yeah, go on.
If it's every month, it's today and in 30 days.
No, so we don't. For example, you don't say it on Kiddush Levana. Kiddush Levana is a monthly bracha, but we don't say Shechianu on that. It's not enough time difference between.
What's the minimum required?
Over a month.
So
but normally it's like a seasonal mitzvah.
Okay,
it's normally
more rare,
seasonal. Yeah, seasonal meaning once a year.
And if I buy new clothes and I buy it today and tomorrow, and I can say traditional brachot, of course, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes. That's with the seasonal here. That's the first category that really there's very little debate about that. Everybody agrees. We say Shechianu. We'll all say Shechianu. Be'ezrat Hashem on Leil HaSeder. We'll all say Shechianu at the beginning with Kiddush, and then a second time during the meal when we eat the matzah. So there's two Shechianus. One is for Pesach, and one is for the seasonal mitzvah of eating a matzah, like the Megillah that we did on Purim. Is that clear? Okay. Then the second one is eating a seasonal fruit for the first time that season. So a seasonal fruit is a fruit that you haven't had for this year. Now in Israel, it's much easier to make a shechianu on seasonal fruit because they're not available all year round. If you go now to any shop and try and find an apricot, you won't find apricots anywhere in Israel.
Figs are only for a few months.
Yeah, exactly. Figs, all fruit that have a season, you can only buy them in their season. So in Israel, it's much easier because the season's over. Then I don't see them for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And then when they come back again, I can then make a shechianu because the season's back in again. You follow? Now we will discuss a fascinating argument, about when do you say the shechianu on a fruit. Like when I go to the shuk and I see the first cherries, do I say shechianu because I saw cherries in the shuk? What's my moment or do I say shechianu when I eat my first cherry? So it's a very interesting debate. It's a machloket, an argument about when you say the bracha. Because the question is, when's my moment of excitement? Yeah. You follow? Oh, wow, look, there are cherries there. Do I need to eat it? Or is it the joy of seeing the cherry? Okay, that's the second category. The third one, and this is very interesting, acquiring. Now, it has to be an important new garment or something of significant value. Or a special event. So, for example, in Israel, we say Shechianu at a Brit Milah, we say Shechianu at a Pidyon Haben. In Chutz La'aretz, only Sfaradim say Shechianu, Brit Milah, and Pidyon Haben. But in Israel, everybody says Shechianu on these events. See, that's not seasonal. It's more, it's mine. Like when I like buying clothing Or, there's no season for a Brit Milah, and there's no season for a Pidyon Haben. Here, it's not about a season, it's about something unique happening to me. So that's like new clothing, well, that's why that's the third category. But any mitzvah that I perform on a regular basis, I don't say Shechianu. That's why there's no Shechianu related to Shabbat. I would never say Shechianu for any Shabbat related mitzvah, and I would never say Shechianu on any Rosh Chodesh related mitzvah, because those are they're too close to, like to wait just 30 days is not enough for the excitement of the new bracha. Okay, is everything clear so far? Okay, we're going to go through the three categories. The first one is seasonal mitzvahs, the second one is seasonal fruit, and the third one is really my personal, if I bought something new or if I did Brit Milah. You follow?
Special objects and events.
Yeah, that's a very good one, thank you. Special objects or events. Very, very good. Okay, good. Kol leile Yom Tov of leile Yom Kippurim omrim Shechianu. The Rambam tells us on the evening of Yom Tov, evening of Yom Kippur, we say Shechianu. However, on Shvi Shel Pesach, Ein Mevarchim Shechianu. We don't say Shechianu on the seventh day of Pesach. Why? She'eino reka b'fnei asmo kfar beirach al azman b'tchilat haPesach. It's the end of a festival. It's not something new, as opposed to the end of Sukkot that we do say Shechianu. What's the difference between the end of Sukkot and the end of Pesach?
End of Sukkot, there's an actual Yom Tov. There's the Shmini Atzeret.
Excellent. It's a different Chag. It's a new Chag. You got Sukkot, then you get out of the Sukkah and you sit inside the house, Shmini Atzeret. But on Pesach, it's really the continuation of the original Chag. So in fact, Shmini Atzeret is the only Chag, Shvi Shel Pesach is the only Chag on which we do not say Shechianu, because it's the only not new Chag. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so that's a Rambam in the laws of Shabbat. If you go to the Rambam in Hilchot Brachot, he says something very, very interesting about seasonal mitzvot. Kol mitzvah shi mizman lizman. Every mitzvah that we do once in a while, like shofar. Now do you follow that this is not connected to Rosh Hashanah? You follow? I make a Shechianu on Rosh Hashanah in Kiddush, and then there's a mitzvah shofar, so I make another Shechianu on that. You follow? Shofar, Sukkah, Leishei Basukah, Nachon, and then Lulav, Mikra Megillah, as we just did, Ner Chanukah. Now this is interesting. V'chein kol mitzvah shehi kinyan lo kagon tzitzit utfilin. If I buy a new talit, or if I buy a new pair of tefillin, I say Shechianu on the mitzvah, on this new object, even though I did this. I wore tefillin yesterday, but it's like a new garment, but it's a new mitzvah. So I'm doing the same mitzvah just on a new talit or on a new tefillin, and therefore I make Shechianu on it. I don't know if any of you have ever been to a wedding where there's no Shechianu at a wedding. Now we can talk about that. Meaning under the chub, that part of the tekes of a wedding does not include Shechianu.
To everyone, right?
What?
To anyone, right?
No, correct.
So no one says.
No one says Shechianu at a wedding. But what some people do is, because they feel this is a Shechianu worthy moment, he buys a talit, a new talit, and then he puts on his new talit, and then he says, like the Rambam over here, he says Shechianu on the talit. But once you're saying Shechianu on the talit, I'm recognizing this moment, I'm going to stick in also this wonderful soulmate. You follow?
So they say actually on the talit.
Well, they say Shechianu on the talit, and then I just expand that to my wife.
Is it the obligation or minhag?
No. I mean, it's just a nice way to acknowledge this moment, because that phrase Shehechianu v'kiyimanu v'higiyanu, that God has sustained us and allowed us to be present at this moment, is such an appropriate phrase for me to articulate at a wedding. You follow? So why do I not say Sheh? I mean, there are lots of discussion, lots of rationales that you could come up with why you don't say it at a chuppah. But really, a chuppah is the beginning of a Be'ezrat Hashem, the beginning of a marriage. But the real joy, as please God you will all discover, the real joy is it just gets better and better. You follow? So however excited you might be at your wedding day, so then like after 1 year, oh my gosh, I'm so much happier now. Look back now a year ago, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. You follow that the joy just gets stronger and stronger. Does that make sense to you? But you'll get there, Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay, continuing the list of the Rambam. Very, very interesting list of the Rambam. Mezuzah. The Rambam says that you make shechianu on putting on a mezuzah. Do you see that? Now, the truth is, nowadays, the custom is not to say shechianu on a mezuzah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro.
Amen.
Oh, that was amazing. Anyone know why you don't say shechianu on a mezuzah? So first of all, two things. First of all, most people do not follow the Rambam, apart from the Teimanim. You know, the Teimanim follow the Rambam in almost all situations. Therefore, Teimanim.
It's all they had for a long time.
Quite right, exactly. And therefore, they do say shechianu on a mezuzah. What's the difference between a mezuzah and tefillin? You know, like it's doing a mitzvah. You know, why would I say shechianu on a tefillin or on a talit, but not on a mezuzah? Any ideas?
Mezuzah's here. I had a thought that maybe it was because you're required to put a mezuzah on. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because not all the time you're going to put it on the doorpost? Like, it's very rare that you do it. Like, it's not like a monthly.
But then that's you're strengthening the argument.
You don't say shechianu.
Yeah. I think the question, and we'll come back to this many, many times, is there is a shechianu that we will discuss later on buying a new home. So we're not talking about making a shechianu on the home. That's a separate shechianu. Of course, acknowledging that I have a new home is a reason to say shechianu. And people, when they sign a contract, if I buy an apartment in Eretz Yisrael and I sign the contract, many people will say shechianu when they sign the contract. And that's the home. I'm saying on the home. But so then the mezuzah is just putting a mezuzah on the door. My joy is not on the mezuzah. My joy is on the home. Now you could, and I think maybe we could distinguish between a talit that I wear, meaning this is a new talit. I feel it the whole way through davening. It's clean. I put my new tefillin on. I feel it. But I'm not sure that I would feel the joy of a new mezuzah in the same way as I would feel the joy on something that I'm actually wearing. And therefore, although the Rambam puts them all together, other poskim, the Shulchan Aruch, rule that no, there's a difference. That concerning tefillin and talit, I do say shechianu, but on a mezuzah, I don't say shechianu. But once we understand that the mezuzah and the new home are two separate sort of moments, so then I can understand I am acknowledging the new home with shechianu when I sign. But then the mezuzah, which is just putting something on the door, that wouldn't be enough to say shechianu. Anyway, if we continue on the list, any mitzvah that I don't do regularly, and I don't do it often, like a Brit Milah Pidyon Ben, I also say shechianu. Is that clear? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to skip down, if that's okay, just in order to... Okay, to move on to the next category. We've said just now, sweet people, we've said that and this is really undisputed, everybody agrees that we always say shechianu on the performance of a seasonal mitzvah. That's in the Gemara, and then it goes down to the Rambam in Hilchot Shabbat. There's really no debate about that. I want to move now to the case of the seasonal fruit. Beseda? Seasonal mitzvot, I think we see. Let's go to the seasonal fruit. If you go now to the Gemara in Eruvin. Now, on the second line, we're not going to read the whole thing. It's a story, it's telling various, some halachot are learned not from a rabbinic discussion, but a story, like I saw Rabbi A do this, or I saw Rabbi B do that. So there was a question in the beginning of the Gemara about whether you say Shechianu on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And do you know how they resolved it? They went to somebody's house, and they want to see, is he going to make Shechianu or not? And then, well, I'm not going to go into that debate, but I want to go to the next discussion, which concerns fruit. Ki atai be Rav Yehuda. When we went to the house of Rabbi Yehuda, Amar, he said, Ana akra chadata. Akra, do you know akra is a vegetable? Akra, do you know what it is?
The okra. No?
Huh?
Okra.
The green 5-pointed, when you cut it, it kind of has the shape like a 5-point star, right?
The jelly thing.
No, it's okra, right?
Okra.
Yeah. It's like this.
Green.
It's like got a hard outside. I think it's a fruit. In English, they call it a gourd.
Oh, right.
But it's mentioned in the Simanim. It's one of the Simanim on Rosh Hashanah. So, Ana Akra Chadata, I picked a gourd off a gourd tree. Nami Amina Zman. And I said Shechianu. We observed Rabbi Huda making a Shechianu on a new fruit that he picked off the tree. You follow? From which we learn, from that story of Rabbi Huda, from which we learn that we make Shechianu on fruit. Now, on that, there's a fascinating argument. Rashi says, when did he make it? Rashi, can you see on the second page? Rashi says, Akra chadata, which means a new gourd. Kisha'ani ro'eh, dala'at chadasha. Do you know what dala'at is? A pumpkin. When I see it, mishana l'shana amin azman. So pumpkin is a seasonal fruit. Is that right, Zachariah?
That is correct.
Phew, thank God for that. Okay, amina zman, I say shechianu. Do you see what Rashi says? Rashi says, when I see it. Tosfot, the Balei Tosfot argued, you see, kol pri chadash keshe'ochlo mevarech shechianu. According to Balei Tosfot, it's not about when I see the fruit, it's about when I eat the fruit. So that's a very, very interesting debate. The debate really is, like, what's my moment of joy? You follow? Because Shechianu is a moment of acknowledging, like the passing of time. It's not about I'm hungry. It's not about the eating. It's about appreciating that God's given me life to live through another season. You follow? So if that's the case, I really understand Rashi's position that it's about seeing it. I go to the shuk, oh wow, my gosh, it's, I don't know, gourd season again, fig season again. Atem shomim etzeh? You hear that argument? Nowadays, most people do not follow that position, though, as you've noticed. Most people will say shechianu when they eat the fruit.
Right.
But there is sort of as we will see in a minute, there is sort of an acknowledgement of Rashi's position in the order. At what stage do I say the shechianu? So look at this. If you look at the Shulchan Aruch, based on the Rashi and Tosot that we just saw, look what he says. Haro'eh pri chadash mitchadesh mishana l'shana mevarech shechianu. Do you hear that, people? When I see a new fruit, I say shechianu. Even more, vafilu ro'eh biyad chaveiro or al ha'ilan. Even if I just see that it's the seed, like they're growing on the tree, my joy is the acknowledgement that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given me the life to live through to another season. However, the custom nowadays follows Tosfot that I only make the bracha when I eat it, even though really it's about seeing it. Now, if you look at that Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah says, meaning if I make the bracha when I see it, that's fine. However, if I do see it and I make the bracha when I see the fruit on the tree, I should only make the bracha on fruit that are ripe. In order to be able to make the shechianu on a fruit, the fruit have to be ripe. I can't see, lemons I think are just starting. Are lemons growing?
Lemons basically grow year round. They start growing while the last years are falling off.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
You are such a gift. But if I see the beginning of a fruit, that's not enough. Yeah. I could be excited. I remember sort of around May time, we start seeing the beginning of pomegranates. Would that be right? May, June? But they're not ready for eating until, sort of, that's like in the summer.
In the kibbutz where I was. Pomegranates.
Nachon? But they're only, they're like Elul Tishrei is when you eat them.
Basically for Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, so I can only make the bracha not in Tammuz or Av, but I can only make the bracha in Elul when they're ripe.
I just realized that we call grenades rimonim, and pomegranate sounds like grenade as well, like pomegranate.
I'm talking about rimonim.
What?
We're talking about rimonim.
Yeah, rimonim.
But we call a grenade a rimon.
I know, but it's the name grenade in English is also from the root of pomegranate.
That's so interesting. This is just like a well-read group of people here. Now, the Aruch HaShulchan Ashkenazi, who lived, it's an Ashkenazi posek. Look what he says. B'dorot harishonim shayu t'mimei derech, and they were just like simple folk. V'samchu b'riyat pri chadash, and they got excited when they walked through the orchard and they see new fruit. V'natnu b'libam todah l'Hashem al tuvo v'chazor l'chol ha'olam. That would be sufficient reason for them to express their gratitude. They were on the level where they could make the bracha on seeing the fruit in the tree. But he, writing after the Industrial Revolution, how do I know that pomegranates are ripe? If I live in the kibbutz, so then I know they're ripe because I see the pomegranate trees. But most of us know they're ripe because we walk through the shuk and we see their pomegranates. You follow? Mm-hmm. Meaning my re'iyah today is not the same as the re'iyah that Rashi was talking about. Rashi was walking around in France with his vineyards and he was getting excited about all the fruit that he saw. So he lived a simple life. He lived an agricultural existence. In that world, I can say the bracha when I see it. Nowadays, when do I get the joy? When I eat it. You follow? It's not my pomegranate tree. It's not like I'm growing an orchard and I see them coming up. My joy, unfortunately, is by the eating, not by the... We live in cities now. We don't live outside in the fields. You follow? So Rashi and Tosafot are both right. Rashi is talking about an environment where I'm walking around the fields and that's the joy. Oh, it's so... Look at my beautiful orange tree or my beautiful apple tree. Look at them all coming into... to produce their fruit for this year. But Balei Tosfot are talking about a place where I buy my fruit in the market. So then I have to make the blessing when I eat it, not when I... Okay, and therefore nowadays we don't make the bracha on the re'iyah, rather we make the bracha on the achila. However, I just want to share one clever little thing with you, because on the one hand, this idea is true. It's true that nowadays my excitement with a pomegranate is not when I see my pomegranate tree, because I don't own a pomegranate tree. I just have a card that I pay in the supermarket. So my joy has got nothing, unfortunately, is far away from the field, right? However, if I were to make shechianu when I eat the fruit, I might be missing that Rashi aspect. You follow what I mean by that? Meaning, I might associate the bracha of shechianu with eating. You follow? So it's true that we now only make the bracha at the time of eating, rather than at the time of seeing the fruit, because we live in cities, we don't live out in the countryside anymore. Nevertheless, I still want to maintain an echo of Rashi. So in the last source on this topic of fruit, there's a book called Vizot HaBracha, a lovely, lovely book just focused on the laws of brachot. And do you know what he says? It's a beautiful idea. And the next time you say Asher Chiyanu, I would like to encourage you to do this. We can follow both Rashi and Tosafot. Very simple thing. Let's say I have my pomegranate, or my apricot, or my fig. Say Shechianu first. First thing is, hold the fig in my hand and say, oh, thank you Hashem for creating this year's figs. I say Shechianu on looking at this beautiful fig, and then I say Borei Priya'et on eating it. You hear that? And then by switching the order, then I can acknowledge Rashi's position. You hear that? Now look what he says. Seder habracha, the order of the brachot, Yivarech techila shehechianu. The first blessing I should make is shehechianu. V'achar kach yivarech habracha haruya l'oto pri. And afterwards I make whatever the bracha is, borei pri ha'etz, borei pri ha'adama. You follow? And with that, I have like an echo of Rashi, even though we follow Balei HaTosfot, like the Aruch HaShulchan. However, Rabbin, many people actually do the other way around, which is fine. However, it might be more in keeping with the idea of the bracha of Shechianu to make the Shechianu first, and then the Borei Pri Ha'etz or Borei Pri Ha'adama as relevant. Does that make sense to you? Joy, happiness? Okay. Yes, Chaim. Chaim, L'chaim.
Right.
Oh no.
My family's tradition on Rosh Hashanah has always been because we lived in Toronto, urban city in Canada, most of the fruits are imported, so season largely doesn't matter. What we would do on Rosh Hashanah in order to say Shechianu is we would buy a fruit that would be unusual to buy during the year. So you ever heard of a star fruit?
Yes, we
Or
did
dragon
that.
fruit?
Yeah, we used to do the same in England.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
So we would buy that, we would say Shechianu on that, and then make the bracha and eat it.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know it's a bit of a problem in England, same thing. You can get everything all year round. So the idea of seasonal fruit is a bit more complicated in a place where everything is available all the time.
Or especially in a place maybe where that fruit doesn't come from the place, so it's imported over the year and it's not something special.
Exactly.
Yeah, most fruits don't grow in Canada.
Yeah.
Neither in England
What
again.
I say, so if it's like say this Pesach was Rosh Hashanah, I'm able to eat matzah, even though it's not a seasonal fruit. And I don't know where we say Shechianu for Pesach, but would I say Shechianu in this case because I haven't eaten bread in so long?
No, you would say Shechianu for the mitzvah matzah
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So,
So normally, the truth is, you ask a wider question. Can I?
So maybe don't even say. Maybe I shouldn't even specify. What if if I just eat bread stam like before Pesach?
So I'll tell you what a lot of people do on that issue. I had a similar situation. It's not exactly the same. There are some moments in life. We've said there are three categories, right? The first category was the seasonal shechianus that we all agree on. The second one was the fruit or seasonal mitzvot. And the third one is really clothing or a new home. But sometimes I reach a milestone and I want to say shechianu at that milestone. Like what we spoke about the wedding earlier. There's no shechianu, but I want to do one so I get a new talit. So we had a few months ago, somebody in the family wasn't well, unfortunately. And we had the first time the family live all around the world. And the first time the family were all together for a Shabbat. So that feels like a Shechianu moment, Nachon? I want to say Shechianu v'kiyimanu v'hiyanu lazman hazeh. Thank you Hashem for giving us all the life to be here together now. That's a very powerful way to sort of process that moment. Or if I've been through something difficult and I want to acknowledge that I'm through it and I want to thank Hashem, but that's also a Shechianu moment. So what a lot of people do is they will, a bit like the talit, they'll buy a new tie, or they'll think of an opportunity to say Shechianu, and then they'll really have in mind multiple reasons for saying that Shechianu. Does that make sense to everybody? I'll just to follow up from that, I didn't mention this in the sheet, but your question reminded me of this idea. There is a custom, as you may know, not to eat new fruit during the 3 weeks, and some eat also during Sfirat HaOmer, during mourning periods. Why would I not say Shechianu? Why would I not eat new fruit during that time or buy new clothing? And the reason is because the bracha is, thank you Hashem for giving me the life to be here at this time. But this time is a time of mourning. So it's not an appropriate acknowledgement to be saying at a time of mourning. So therefore, some people avoid eating new fruit during mourning periods of the year because it doesn't seem appropriate. It's like the flip side of what you're saying. Sometimes there's no official Shechianu, and I want to say Shechianu. So I buy a talit or I buy some new clothes so that I can say Shechianu even though I don't really need to say it. And other times I want to avoid saying Shechianu because it's not really an appropriate, not an appropriate acknowledgement for this minute. Okay, is that clear to everybody? Okay. Okay, so let's go now to when do we not say Shechianu? So pre she'eino mitchadesh mishana l'shana. If there's fruit that it's not seasonal, I just happen not to have eaten it for a long time. Eino mevarech shechianu. You don't say shechianu on that. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says, and the Ramah adds pre she'mitchadesh shnei pamim b'shana mevarachim alav shechianu. Aval she'ein lo zman kabul legodlo ein mevarachin alav. So I only say shechianu on the seasonal fruit. So let's say a lemon or an apple that are available all year round. That they grow, that any fruit or vegetable that's really available all year round. There's no season for them. You wouldn't say shechianu. So there's two important things. If there's a fruit that has 2 seasons, so then I can say shechianu on that fruit twice a year. Because there's a time when it's available and there's a time when it's not available. But if there's a fruit that has no seasons, it's available all year round. There are probably some vegetables, potatoes, they grow all year round. So I would never say shechianu on a potato. Even if, having eaten a potato for a year, I wouldn't say shechianu because there's no time that they're not available. You follow? So I'm not acknowledging the passing of time in something that's available all the time. Does that make sense to you? So you can have 2 seasons, and that justifies shechianu, but no seasons would not work. Okay. Now, so that's concerning fruit. With that, we conclude our discussion of fruit. Now I want to talk about clothing. Which clothing do you make shechianu on? And do I make shechianu on second-hand clothing? Or, what type of clothing would justify shechianu? And here, it's very, very interesting. Because, I hope you can see, it's sort of like a process of a very strict rules concerning shechianu concerning chagim. And then fruit is sort of, depends how, when it's available, seasonal, not seasonal. The third category, that is to say clothing or a new home, that is entirely up to the joy that you experience in buying it. So if you have a look to the last example, Bana Bait Chadash, if somebody built a new home, or Kana Kelim Chadashim, or bought a new, something new, Afilu Hayal or Kiyotza Ba'elu Tchila, I bought a new suit, but I own a suit, I just bought another suit. Or Kana B'Chazar B'Kana, Mavarech Al Kol Pan, you'd make Shechianu each time. Shechianu. The lav is Dafka Chadashim, Tu Adin L'Yishanim. Imhem Chadashim Lo, it's new for you. Shelo Hayu Elu Shelo Me'olam, they never belong to you. V'lo Mu Chadashim Ela, Levoki Im Mechavar B'Chazar B'Kana. And you can't sell it and buy it back and sell it. Like, if I own something and then sell it to you and then buy it back, I can't make a second shechianu. But anything that's new for me, I can make shechianu on. Now, as we mentioned really in our introduction, look at this. This is really, this is a very, very important way to know whether I make the bracha or not. here, Binyan Kinyan, Yeshua Varech, Afal Bishatain Loish Tamizun, Ein Mavarchim Ena Al Yadei Simchat Halev Shu Sameach Bekniyatan. I need to have Simcha Balev, that I'm happy that I own this. You follow? I'm not sure that people get excited necessarily when they buy new socks. Or like a vest, we call them an undershirt. Do you know what I mean? But let's say there could be certain items of clothing that I wanted for a long time, but now I own it. So if I feel simcha balev, then I would say shechianu on that. You follow? Huh?
What about the shoes? Do you say shechianu on the shoes?
Also, same idea. Same. It's all about simcha balev. Ah. Kippah also, I suppose. It's all about the simcha balev. It's very hard to measure that simcha balev. Yeah. What's interesting and important in this discussion is, two people go to the same shop and both buy the same item, and one of them is, one of them buys these, I don't know, every Tuesday. It's not an exciting experience for him. He does it the whole time. The other guy, it's a big event. Now I own it. So he would say a shechianu. You follow? So it's a much more, the final category is much more subjective. I want to go to the Zot HaBracha, who explains this very, very clearly. The final paragraph over here. And it's a nice way to finish, and then we'll summarize. I'm just going to have a sip. Okay. Again, the Zot HaBracha. The Zot HaBracha was written by somebody nowadays, maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but he lives here in Israel. The Zot HaBracha. Isn't that a lovely name of the book? You just go through every bracha. Each chapter is a different bracha.
It's the parasha, right?
Yes, the last parasha, exactly. Okay, Kayam Hebdel Yisodi. There is a very important distinction between the shechianu that I make on new clothing as opposed to the shechianu that I make over new fruit. Concerning fruit, we make shechianu even if you're not that excited about it. Why? Because I'm acknowledging the passing of time. You follow? Now there is a new season, and I acknowledge the new season. So the fig may not be my most excited. Might be not that excited about having a new fig. I know. There are Philistines in the world. I apologize. But imagine. It's hard to imagine that. But let's say there was somebody who was like that. So that guy would still make the shechianu. Simcha is not a critical factor in new fruit. The new season is what I'm making a bracha on. I'm expressing gratitude to God that I've, there's a new, that I lived through the old season and I'm here now for the next season. However, concerning clothing, the bracha was established on important clothing that give you joy. And therefore it depends really on each person's financial standing. If somebody that doesn't have as much means, so he would get very, very excited on very, on very simple clothing, because it's not obvious. I worked very, very hard and I'm finally able to buy a coat. That's an amazing blessing in the winter. I really want to express my gratitude to Hashem on the coat. I'm going to say shechianu. And there could be another guy that opens his cupboard and he's got 15 coats in his cupboard. So another coat is not as exciting for him. So the guy for whom the coat is going to save me this winter, of course he'll say shechianu. But the guy that's got 15 other coats, that's not as exciting. You follow? And therefore, it really, concerning clothing, it really all depends on how I view this item. If I'm excited, so it doesn't matter if it's new or second-hand, it's about my excitement in owning something that I didn't own before. You follow? So we see there's really three categories. The first category is an obligation, meaning everybody will make shechianu on Rosh Hashanah. There's no two ways about it. Everyone opens Rosh Hashanah, will say shechianu. On Leil HaSeder, we will all say shechianu. It's written in the Haggadah. So it's an obligation to make shechianu on the special days. Then you go to things like new fruit, and that is you're allowed to, I mean, if I eat it, then I make the blessing. If I don't eat it, I don't make the blessing. But, and as we saw in this lovely book, V'zot HaBracha, the correct order, the ideal order is, first of all, to admire and acknowledge this new exciting fruit. Look at the fig. Look at that amazing fig.
But it looks so cool when you cut them in half.
Isn't that amazing? So just do that and say, oh wow, Shechiyanu v'kimanu v'yikanu, and then make a blessing on eating it. That's the second category. And the third category is I'm not obliged to. There I have permission when appropriate. I can make Shechiyanu, and that's really a factor based on my excitement. You know, if it's something that gives me simcha, I would make a bracha. If it's something that doesn't give me simcha, then I wouldn't make a bracha. I would add a fourth category that we didn't discuss, a bit like the wedding. There are some moments in our lives that I would like to express my gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through saying Shechiyanu for this moment. Do you know what I mean? Let's say you propose to her and she says yes. You want to say Shechiyanu at that moment, right? So you should have like a new fruit, put on a new tie, or I don't know, whatever people do nowadays. And then you can channel your excitement, your general excitement at that moment, into the fruit or this item of clothing that you've bought in order to make a Shechiyanu. You follow? So I can, if I want to channel my excitement at this moment into a Shechiyanu, I can use a fruit or an item of clothing in order to allow myself to make Shechiyanu, even when it's not mandated. Is that clear to everybody? Joy, happiness, questions, comments? Yishar Koach. Have a wonderful day.
This is a pretty